Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Breakdown Besties podcast. I'm Ananya,
I'm Akshay.
and together we are your Breakdown Besties. Combined, we have 14 years of experience writing for shows like Mismatched, Wedding.com, Rana Naidu, Grahan, Shark Tank, Inside Edge, and a host of others that got stuck in development hell, but will hopefully see the light of day one day. With the Breakdown Besties podcast, our goal is to bring you a film school experience right to your YouTube classroom. Over here, we break down the scripts that make iconic Bollywood films iconic. We study what works, what doesn't work, how can we emulate the techniques in our own writing, and how can we improve what quite hasn't worked on the screen so that we can create films that absolutely do. Huh? And today, the film that we are going to be breaking down is a 2012 visual delight called Barfi, written by Anurag Basu, Tani Basu, and Sanjeev Datta. This story chronicles the tale of a deaf and dumb young man who simply is moving through his life in the world as a man who is plagued with such limitations, right? I think it's best we not waste time and get into the first part of our podcast, which is always this log line. So, what is the log line? Your log line is your film's central premise expressed in a few lines, usually less than 40 words. Whenever you're lost when you're writing a scene or a sequence or a particular line of dialogue and you've forgotten कि ये फिल्म का मुद्दा क्या है, हम ये क्यों लिख रहे हैं, your log line is what you return to. It allows you to see the forest for the trees, especially when you're so lost in the weeds of your screenplay that you've forgotten what it's really about. Now, why is the log line so effective at helping us get bird's eye view on our film? Because it contains these four important elements. The first is your flaw or limitation or block or wound. This is something that the character has within themselves, a trait that is not serving them in achieving element number two, their goal. The goal is why we're watching this film to begin with. It is what they're setting out to achieve, and the audience is following along our character on this journey of achieving this goal. The third thing is the conflict. The conflict is something external which keeps coming in the character's way, which keeps creating challenge, and it challenges their inner flaw, block, or limitation or wound. It is an external manifestation of what's stopping them from the inside. And by overcoming what's on the outside, they're able to overcome what's on the inside and get one step closer to their goal. It's your story engine. And finally, you have stakes. Stakes are what the character is going to lose should they not achieve their goal. It's not simply not achieving their goal. It is taking them one level lower, that failure is penalized. Right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Great.
let's get into the logline of Balfi. A playful, deaf and dumb man seeks love in a world where he's considered a menace.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the limitation, because he doesn't have a flaw in this film, flaw
Hmm.
as in by our standards. In the film standards, he's perceived by other characters as flawed because he's deaf and dumb.
Hmm.
But we as writers, we're very cognizant of the fact that he's a limitation, that it's his limitation. Especially given the way that Ranbir Kapoor's character has been designed, it
Yeah.
is a limitation more than a flaw. Right?
Yeah.
And we'll get into his character design when we talk about character, but it is stopping him from achieving what a person like him would have
Hmm.
otherwise achieved in the world in which he inhabits.
Hmm.
Right? Next, we have the goal. The goal is he's seeking love. It's as simple as that. He wants to be
Hmm.
loved despite being deaf and dumb.
Hmm.
And the conflict is that he is considered a menace. That
Hmm.
every time he wants to be loved, he's considered a menace for being deaf and dumb. Everyone comes up against him. That is the
Hmm.
challenge that he faces over and over again.
Hmm.
And the fourth element is stakes. Now, much like many of the films we've done, this film doesn't have stakes built into the log line.
Hmm.
What the film does really well is because you don't have stakes built into the log line, into the premise, like it doesn't inherently lend to stakes.
Hmm.
The film opens with a chase with the police.
Hmm.
And Ranbir Kapoor's character is taken in by the police after a big chase.
Hmm.
And that itself lends stakes. Oh my God,
Hmm.
what's going to happen? Will he be left? Will he be freed? Is he going to suffer? So, why stakes? What does stakes do? Why do we have stakes in the film? Because we want to have our audiences at the edge of the seat at all points in time, right? That
Hmm.
if they don't achieve this goal, abhi kya hoga?
Hmm.
So while the film didn't achieve this from a logline point of view, they've done it from a visual storytelling point of view by
Hmm.
keeping you on the edge of your seat, right?
Yeah. I think it's the non-linear narrative which sort of adds the stake in the film. Otherwise, it doesn't really build until a very later stage, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So should we go into the hero's journey next?
Yeah, let's do that.
What is your hero's journey? Your hero's journey is the structural spine of your film. It tells you the journey your hero is going on, and at each turn of the story of his journey, what
Hmm.
obstacles he is going to face. And these obstacles deliver an emotional hit to your audience every so often that makes
Hmm.
them sit and follow through on your hero's journey. It
Hmm.
creates progress, it creates a sense of motion, and it creates a sense of constant conflict. So sometimes, even if you're wondering why your plot is not really landing, once you've written it out, map it against your hero's journey to
Hmm.
see whether it's meeting all these turning points. And
Hmm.
if it isn't, you know that it's a very simple diagnostic tool to tell you that, okay, this is maybe what I have to fix. Now, on the hero's journey of Barfi,
Hmm.
I believe that there are two different stories being told.
Okay.
There is first Ranbir Kapoor and Ileana D'Cruz's love story, which is
Right.
being told. And then you have Ranbir Kapoor and his father's story, where his
Okay.
father is
Hmm.
dying, Barfi and his father, which brings Jhilmil into the
Hmm.
loop, Priyanka
Hmm.
Chopra's character. And both this begins a separate hero's journey. But
Hmm.
both these hero's journeys converge,
Intercept. Huh.
yeah, at the point of the reward.
Hmm.
And they both go and flow as one hero's journey from there.
Hmm. That's amazing. I didn't think of it that way. Hmm.
So I'll talk you through both of those heroes'
Hmm.
journeys and then from the convergence point.
Hmm.
And I'll also talk about why it works
Hmm.
once we get there. Okay.
Hmm.
So, first we have the ordinary world. The ordinary world is where your hero is before they've started going on the quest to achieve their goal. You see
Hmm.
the where, what, who, why, and when of their surroundings. And we also get an understanding of why they're not able to achieve their goal.
Hmm.
In this particular story, in Barfi's story, the ordinary world shows us that he is a charming young man. But he's considered a menace by everyone around him because of
Hmm.
the way he lives his life.
Hmm.
We learn that he's deaf and dumb, that his name was originally Murphy after Murphy Radio, but because he was deaf and dumb, it sounded like Barfi when it came out of his mouth,
Yeah.
and that became his name.
Right.
Then we have the call to action.
Hmm.
The call to action is where your hero is asked for the first time in our
Hmm.
story, within our movie, to go and pursue their goal. They are
Hmm.
called to take action towards pursuing their goal.
Hmm.
And over here, it happens when he first spots Ileana D'Cruz's character, Shruti, right?
Right.
And Barfi doesn't hesitate at all. While he can't speak, he is not lacking charm in any way, shape, or form. He mimes and he pulls his heart out of his chest and offers it up to her.
Yeah.
And Ileana plays hard to get.
Hmm.
This brings us to the refusal of the call. The refusal of the call is the step in your hero's journey where your hero feels like, I can't go on this journey.
Hmm.
This might come from within, where they themselves may decide, may hesitate from
Hmm.
accepting the call, or someone else may reject it for them.
Hmm.
In this case, it is the knowledge that Ileana D'Cruz or Shruti is
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
engaged.
Engaged. Hmm.
So that is the refusal to the call that no, you cannot pursue me.
Hmm.
This is not happening, right?
Hmm.
Then you have meeting the mentor. The
Hmm.
mentor traditionally is the character who has been there and done that. He has been on
Hmm.
your journey before. If you're
Hmm.
going to go slay the dragon, he's going to hand you the sword to be able to slay the dragon.
Hmm.
over here, there is no one who particularly hands Barfi's character the sword.
Hmm.
He has his way of going about things.
Hmm.
So he decides to cross the threshold
Hmm.
himself.
Hmm.
Crossing the threshold is where you say, okay, now that I have the sword, I am going to step into this new world and
Hmm.
cross the threshold, the shortcut of my old world,
Hmm.
and embark on my journey of achieving my goal.
Hmm.
So Barfi climbs up to the clock tower and he physically he moves the arms back as he
Hmm.
sends a note to Shruti and says that pretend that the last 15 minutes that our conversation never happened, that I never professed my love to you, but I want to be in your life. I would love to be your friend. Let's
Friend.
be friends.
Hmm.
And Shruti watches this from the cafe terrace where she's sitting and she waves out to him and says that, okay, I will be happy to be your friend.
Hmm.
So we know that Barfi has entered the new world and crossed the threshold into this new world.
Hmm.
Right? Then we have the next segment, which is tests, allies, and enemies.
Hmm.
In this, the hero is in the new world and he's understanding the lay of the land. He's understanding who his friends are, who his enemies are, what obstacles he's going to face in this new world. And in our story, at this point, we see Barfi and Shruti spending more time together. They become close. He's super charming. He
Hmm.
gives her what she wants. He makes her laugh and smile. And the two of them really hit it off. They spend more
Hmm.
and more time together.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you have the approach to the innermost cave.
Hmm.
When talking about it from a romantic point of view, the approach to the innermost cave is the part where you get what you want, right?
Hmm.
Where you go after what you want. It is
Hmm.
approaching the dragon, ready to slay him.
Hmm.
And over here, in a romantic setting, it is kissing the woman you love.
Hmm.
And so Ileana de Cruz and Ranbir Kapoor's character finally kiss.
Yes. Hmm.
It's the moment we've been waiting for. It is phenomenal. And but then after you've slain the dragon, you
Hmm.
always have the ordeal.
Hmm.
So the ordeal begins when Ranbir Kapoor has approached the innermost cave and he says that and he goes to Ileana de Cruz's parents and says, I want to marry your daughter. Essentially, your ordeal is where you're facing the consequences of approaching the cave. So,
Right.
what are the consequences of asking for her hand in marriage?
Hmm.
Her fiance is obviously there. So he
Hmm.
realizes that, okay, this can't happen. Ileana de Cruz's mum reads the note where he says that I want to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage. And the mum tells the dad that, oh, he's just asking for donation because he's deaf and dumb.
Yeah.
And
She
the dad
lies.
pulls out some money. Yes, she
Hmm.
lies. And then as Ranbir Kapoor is leaving,
Hmm.
Shruti follows him out, and
Hmm.
the two of them have a big fight, which where Ranbir Kapoor essentially says, mimes or actions that, "Oh my God, can you like look at how they're treating me? What because I don't have money? Oh, your fiance
Hmm.
has a car. Well, I hope you're happy." And he returns the money, and he even apologizes for being so rude when he realizes
Hmm.
what he's done, and he leaves. And
Hmm.
finally, Shruti also leaves town, and Ranbir Kapoor makes one last try to stop her, but her mum is in the train with her. He bumps into a light pole, and that's the end of that story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, this is your first hero's journey.
That's
Then,
amazing. Like that's amazing. Like I didn't obviously make this connection that treated as these two separate stories. And, but
hmm,
what you're saying makes complete sense.
and so therein begins the next part of your story, where
Hmm.
you go back to Ranbir Kapoor's ordinary world, where
Hmm.
it's him and his father. And his
Hmm.
father works for Jhilmil, which is who is Priyanka Chopra's character. Priyanka
Hmm.
Chopra is autistic in this film. She's essentially unwanted in her parents' house, but she's there. And yeah, so we see the ordinary world
Hmm.
where Ranbir Kapoor's dad is now sick
Hmm.
because he's been fired from his job and they have no money to
Hmm.
pay for the treatment. Another part of the ordinary world is Ranbir Kapoor goes to Jhilmil's dad and says that, look, we need 7,000 rupees for the
Hmm.
treatment. We don't have that money. Could you please lend us some money?
Hmm.
Because after all, you fired him and this is
Yeah.
not your fault. But he gives him some pocket change, some spare
Sure.
change, and says, off you go. Right? Okay. Our next step is the call to action. The call to action is where the characters finally call to pursue their goal. So
Hmm.
this is where Ranbir Kapoor has the idea to go kidnap Jhilmil.
Hmm.
because he
Hmm.
realizes that if he kidnaps her, then he can get the money, the ransom money
Hmm.
that he wants to cure his father.
Hmm.
Now, the refusal of the call happens when he goes to Jilmil's house to kidnap her and realizes that somebody else has already kidnapped her.
Hmm. Yeah.
So he's not able to do what he wants to do. So then he tries to rob a bank.
Hmm.
But he's unable to rob the bank.
Hmm.
So as he's running out of there being chased by the police, he happens upon the van in which Jilmil is actually being kidnapped.
Hmm.
So a scuffle follows and he's able to steal that van.
Hmm.
So again, there is no mentor as such who hands him the sword here. It is
Hmm.
happening upon that van. And then he crosses the threshold by taking her home and
Yeah.
saying that you're now going to stay here with me. I've kidnapped you.
Hmm.
Right. Then we have tests, allies, and enemies where they get to know each other,
Hmm.
and we realize how hard it is for Barfi's character to be able to live with an autistic person, to be able to understand Jilmil, what she needs. The two of them fight. She tries to escape, she tries to run away, but
Hmm.
eventually they form a bit of an understanding and a friendship with each other.
Hmm. Yeah.
Then we have the approach to the innermost cave. The
Hmm.
approach to the innermost cave is where Ranbir Kapoor finally delivers the ransom note to
Hmm.
Jilmil's father
Hmm.
and says, drop off the money here at this time in
Hmm.
this place.
Hmm.
Uh, they drop off the money. Ranbir Kapoor gets the money. And just as he gets the money, his ordeal begins because as he deposits it at the hospital, his father passes away.
Hmm. Yeah.
So he is unable to do anything about it. That is
Hmm.
the ordeal. And then
Hmm.
the ordeal continues. Like he sends Jilmil back to her house and says, okay,
Hmm.
you go. But Jilmil doesn't want to go back home and live with her family.
Yeah.
Ranbir Kapoor is also by himself. Now he was pursuing love all this time. And
Right.
Shruti, Liana D'Cruze's character who he loved, left him. His dad, the only other person who loved him, has left him.
Right.
Now the police are after him. Jilmil
Hmm.
is refusing to leave his side.
Hmm.
He's like, what should I do? The two
Hmm.
of them go to Calcutta.
Hmm.
And finally, at Calcutta, they are met with a reward. And this reward is both the tracks converging. The
Yeah.
reward is meeting Shruti all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Hmm.
Then you have the way back,
Hmm.
which is where Shruti starts spending more time with Barfi and
Hmm.
Jhilmil. Barfi falls in love with Jhilmil. The two
Hmm.
almost kiss, but they don't because Jhilmil still needs to get more comfortable around him. But she is most certainly in love with him too.
Hmm.
But Jhilmil is also jealous of Shruti's presence in Barfi's life. So
Yeah.
she runs away when she
Yeah.
realizes that when she sees Barfi and Shruti being too close.
Hmm. Hmm.
Barfi is then arrested for
Huh.
Jhilmil's kidnapping and except that he is able to escape the police station in the nick of time.
Hmm.
And then as he and Shruti are back hiding in Calcutta, he remembers that Jhilmil was actually in a home for
Hmm.
specially abled kids.
Hmm.
And they track down that home and they go to find her there. Even
Hmm.
over there, the guy, the steward of the home, doesn't want to give away the fact that Jhilmil is there, so he lies about it. And Barfi is at his lowest, and the two of them are leaving the home when Jhilmil calls her from the top. That
Hmm.
she calls her and says, Barfi, Barfi. And that is the moment of resurrection. And when your character's at the lowest, when they think they will never find love again, when they
Hmm.
think their goal is just so close to being achieved, but now will never be achieved, they
Hmm.
rise from the ashes. And then you finally have the return with the elixir,
Hmm.
which is where you go back into your old world, but now you're a new person. You have gone through this journey, you have overcome your flaw, you've learned who you are, and you go back now a wizened person. And now
Hmm.
Barfi goes back to his own world, having married Jhilmil, having known
Hmm.
that he's actually lovable, that he's not a menace, and
Hmm.
that he deserves to be loved.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So this is your hero's journey. And I want to talk about two things here.
Hmm.
One, why it really works as two stories, because
Hmm.
essentially one story is ending, another story is beginning. The reason we can have the Shruti story and then begin a whole new story is because even as we're beginning a whole new story, it begins with a level of conflict.
Yeah.
It begins with the dad like dying or being on his deathbed.
Hmm.
So that is why you can switch from one story to another, because it's not like you went like, oh, I was so up here and I'm bringing the audience here. No, I
Down.
was up
Yeah.
here in terms of emotion and now I'm taking the emotion even higher. And the second thing I want to note here is this kind of structuring is impossible to do by plotting it on paper and saying, Acha, am I meeting this beat of the hero's journey? Am I meeting
Yeah.
this beat of the hero's journey? This happens very organically when you are a strong storyteller and you
Hmm.
have a near instinctive understanding of what lends to a good story.
Yeah. Hmm.
You will feel it in your bones. You might not have the words for it. The reason we
Hmm.
have the words for it is because that is our whole idea, right? We go into
Yeah.
these podcast episodes going, all we need to give people the words for it.
Yeah.
But most storytellers, if develop this over practice,
Hmm.
but and then it comes to them instinctively because you've
Hmm.
read so many scripts, you've
Yeah.
watched so many movies that you know that, acha, if that now that Shruti has gone, I can't just bring the story down. It has to be elevated.
That,
It
huh.
will niggle you in your chest ki
Yeah.
"अच्छा, ठीक नहीं बैठ रहा है."
Yeah.
So that's why you need to be watching more breakdowns like this. You need to
Hmm.
be like reading more scripts intentionally with your brain on and trying to understand what's happening so that
Hmm.
when it comes to writing your own script, that
Hmm.
part of your brain can go off. It's like driving a
Hmm.
car. At
Hmm.
first, everything is like you're being super vigilant. You're like,
Hmm.
okay, my foot is on the clutch and the accelerator, and I'm also looking at traffic and all of that. But 5 months later, you're doing that and you're talking on the phone
Phone.
while doing that,
Yeah.
So that's what happens. You will be able to do this instinctively.
And to support your argument, I was like asking some people about the movie and all that, and I got to know like it started from a 40-page script.
Oh.
Like, and it was written fully linear.
Mhm.
And it's because this storyteller is like this, like Anurag Basu, who keeps changing stuff till the like last moment. He
Hmm.
decided that he's gonna, if only like the film will have more like feel like it has more stakes. So what we are talking about in the log line, that only if like it starts in a non-linear way, like it has chase sequences, you keep cutting back to the second timeline, which has the police and the investigation going on. So
Yeah.
he wrote it linearly, decided that it doesn't work the most, and like flipped the script completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Do you want to go into theme next?
take it away. Yeah.
So, what is theme? Theme is your perspective on the world that you
Hmm.
put forth as an artist.
Hmm.
You have come and become a writer because you believe that the world has to be seen a certain way, and you want to express that, and your writing, your films, your movies are a medium of expressing your point of view into the world.
Hmm.
And how do you do this? You do this by asking a central question,
Hmm.
and the resolution of your film will answer that central question and tell you whether what you're saying is a yes or a no to your
Hmm.
worldview.
Hmm.
What does that look like? So in Barfi, the theme is very simple. They've even put it in words several times.
Hmm.
They say, should you love someone for who they are or for what they bring to the table?
Hmm.
It is very evident in this story. And this central question has to be kept front and center in every scene you are writing as
Hmm.
an underlying motif.
Hmm.
So, and every character needs to embody different sides of this argument.
Hmm.
Some characters will say that no, people are loved only for what they bring to the table. Others will say that no, they deserve to be loved for who they are, not what they can do for you. So I want to point this out by talking about the different characters in this world.
Hmm.
Okay. First, you have Shruti. Shruti loves Barfi for who he is,
Hmm.
but she is not a strong enough character. She has to
Hmm.
learn this lesson later on. But then you
Hmm.
have Shruti's mom, who
Mother.
says that no, we like people for what they can bring to the table because we are being practical. You need to live a certain way. Your life needs to be a certain way. And that is more important than anything else. Then you have Jilmil's character.
Hmm.
She doesn't bring anything to the table.
Hmm.
And she doesn't expect anything from others either. She just expects love. She
Hmm.
just expects people to be good.
Hmm.
Then you have Jilmil's father, who
Hmm.
also doesn't love Jilmil as she is, or Jilmil's whole family. They love her for what she can bring to the table. They want her in the
Hmm.
light for what she can bring to the table, which is
Which
the
is it's a
trust
trust
that her
fund.
Nanu has, yeah,
Yeah.
left in her name. That is the only reason they keep her around.
Yeah.
And at the end, the film is resolved by Barfi finally falling in love with Jhilmil
Hmm.
and Shruti, the one who actually loved Barfi to begin with,
Hmm.
her not getting Barfi.
Yeah.
So that is your film's theme that yes, people are loved for who they are and not for what material objects and belongings they bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And
Hmm.
even the subplot where is woven in with this narrative. Like the
Hmm.
main plot is Barfi looking for love. The
Hmm.
subplot is of Jilmil, and there you have her father and the steward.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
that shows another aspect of the same theme.
Hmm.
It's very carefully calibrated that we
Hmm.
are not telling a completely different story. This is a
Hmm.
story about love for people unconditionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if this is the right time to say, but I felt the film was a little crowded. I don't know if you also felt that. Like, I thought there were so many characters here and there. Like the,
Yeah.
it felt like each character on this theme had people in their lives who represented different sides of their theme. So we had so many characters and point of views to follow
Yeah.
at sometimes. Yeah.
Exactly. It wasn't economic at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you wanted it to be economic, you wouldn't have like one story, then another story.
Yeah.
Those two, the father dying, Shruti, Jilmil,
Yeah.
they all would have been crunched into a single timeline.
Huh. Correct. Yeah.
From a writing perspective, it's not economic, but
Huh.
this film is a director's film.
Film. Totally. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into world next.
Yeah.
Cool. So I want to talk about the world by starting with the very first bit of the film, which is even
Hmm.
before the film starts,
Hmm.
which is where they give all the disclaimers and all of that.
Hmm.
And it starts with a song which says,
Hmm.
"We picture shuru, we
Yeah.
picture shuru," like turn off like your bache and your phone, like
Yeah.
all of that. And what I really liked about that is it tells you that you are going to be watching a film now.
Hmm.
Most films don't tell you that.
Yeah.
They assume that when you watch it, you will be pulled into the world of the film.
Hmm.
But there's a solid awareness here, which they're telling you that you look, you're watching a film. And why they do that is because they want to tell you that, look, this is a film. So
Hmm.
there's certain unrealistic shit that's going to be happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to get on board with it because it's not a film, it's real life. It's not a
Yeah.
real life, it's a film.
Life is a film. Huh.
Yeah. And I think that is why they are able to have a character that is both deaf and dumb and a character
Hmm.
that is autistic in the same
Hmm.
film.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can almost imagine getting a note from a streamer that says,
Yeah.
"Arey, this is too much representation.
Yeah.
ऐसा तो मतलब होता ही नहीं है." Like,
Yeah.
otherwise,
Yeah.
or they'd make you like set this film in like a world of, you know, special the abled kids ka
Kids
house
ka
or something
school.
like that.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So, which I mean, obviously, people of all abilities exist in all worlds, but
Yeah.
because of the constraints of our society, as someone who very recently broke her foot, I realized that because we are not an accessible society, you don't see people with wheelchairs outside because where
Yeah.
are you going to have,
Go.
where are they going to move around, right? There's no
Yeah.
footpaths for people with wheelchairs. So you don't see them, so you assume they don't exist.
Hmm.
And the same thing goes on with for people who are autistic, for people who are deaf and dumb, because we are not an accessible society. So it's
Yeah.
very hard for us to comprehend a movie in which you have both
Yeah.
a character who's deaf and dumb and a character who's autistic. So they
Hmm.
tell you that, boss, we picture Shuru. Like this is a film.
Yeah.
This in
Yeah.
this world it exists.
Yeah. It's a one step ahead. Like it's like one leap we were taking, and like you also have to take it with us.
With
It's
us.
it's that. Yeah.
Yeah, humanity on steroids.
Yeah.
And they've also used the world in some ways very sparingly
Hmm.
to derive conflict from it that is organic to it. So, for example, Ranbir Kapoor's character is deaf and dumb,
Hmm.
but they haven't turned this into a running joke or anything like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yet, they have picked and chosen moments where the
Yeah.
fact that he is deaf and dumb becomes a problem.
Problem. Hmm.
And we see this when his dad is having his first attack, heart attack,
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Yeah.
He is Ranbir Kapoor is a little away from him at a height, sleeping, going to sleep, and his dad is floundering around, like knocking things off shelves. But because Ranbir is deaf and can't hear him, he's completely
Hmm.
oblivious to the fact that this is happening, and this creates conflict within the scene, very
Yeah.
organically derived from the world and the character.
Bold. Yeah.
Right? And the next is when he's robbing a bank and the
Hmm.
alarm goes off that they've alerted the police.
Yeah.
Ranbir Kapoor has no idea. So he continues doing what he's doing because he
Yeah.
can't listen to
Yeah.
it, he can't hear it. So again, very organically derived.
Yeah.
Right?
And they end up creating a lot of not just conflict, but like actually moments of micro conflict only, that like somebody calling out to him and he'll not be able to hear it, you know? So
Hmm.
like even in that final resurrection moment, Jhilmil
Yeah.
calls out to him, he can't hear it.
He
It's
can't
only
hear it.
because Shruti hears it, she turns
Hmm.
and he looks at her visually and he understands, oh, she's there, you know?
There. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, these beautiful moments i- of either conflict or these moments, like you'll never like they come from the world. Yeah.
The world. Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. What do you want to go into next?
Character creation.
Sure, let's do character creation.
So, okay, I'll start and then you add on. I thought this was a masterclass in creating visual empathy for a character. So, in the sense that now, what's your biggest constraint is that you can't give him smart one-liners. You can't give him immediate, like you can't give him big monologues, or you can't give him like dialogues or for humor or for any sort of connection. So what do they you they do visual humor, which is like using comedy, like visually gags. So I think humor is firstly primarily used to create connection and empathy, but they don't rely on that. They take one step ahead and they use the talking heads of people around him. So you have Shruti's character saying that sab use pasand karte the, you know.
Yeah.
So firstly, we know this character likes Barfi, and you know everybody else liked it. And this is a technique which we spoke about in Badmash Company, right? Like that if other characters in your film like your character, oh, your audience will like the character.
Yeah.
So I thought that they did very nicely. And I think they used this a little bit for Jilmil's character also. That they used talking heads of like other people in the home to give her more context, to give
Hmm.
her light of story. And the only person they don't do this with is Shruti's character because it's not
Hmm.
needed because she can make her own connection with the audience and other
Mm.
characters.
Yeah.
So I thought that was done quite intentionally and very smartly.
Definitely, yeah. Like they have given Ranbir Kapoor's character Barfi traits left, right, and center
Center.
to make him
Yeah.
likable. Like his only limitation is that he's deaf and dumb.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's clever, he's charming, he's physically extremely adept. He
Yeah.
doesn't even see himself as a victim. He's very
Yeah.
self confident.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of padding to make sure that their
Yeah.
audience
Correct.
loves him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then another thing I wanted to talk about was character consistency.
Hmm.
Okay. Now we see Ranbir Kapoor and Priyanka Chopra, Barfi and Jhilmil's character, develop
Hmm.
this habit of constantly scaring each other. Like boo, boo. You know? It's
Yeah.
established throughout the course of their friendship, courtship, all of that. And then you have the final resurrection moment where Jhilmil calls out to Barfi and he
Hmm.
goes running to find her.
Hmm.
And in that moment, Jhilmil is waiting for him.
Hmm.
Now, as a writer, you are inclined to have like the big hug and kiss and immediately happen. But what they very cleverly done is had
Hmm.
Ranbir Kapoor give her a scare there also, like a boo.
Hmm.
And then they get into the hugging and all of the
Yeah.
romantic, mushy stuff. So this is really important. This will come to you in your second draft because this won't come to you
Hmm.
in your first draft,
Hmm.
where you realize that this is my character's relationship. The
Hmm.
relationship is not loving and kissing each other. It is built through shared rituals and habits. And this
Hmm.
is a shared ritual that they have. So they have
Hmm.
maintained its consistency and said that just because he's seeing her after a long time doesn't mean he's going to break character. He is going to
Hmm.
be who he is in their relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really important to do. And then I want to point out a trickster character.
Hmm.
There's a trickster trope.
Hmm.
So over here we have a police officer who is constantly on Ranbir Kapoor on Barfi's trail. He is
Hmm.
always chasing him. He's even having him like beaten up when he thinks he's the kidnapper. All of that. You think that this there couldn't be a bigger enemy in the story for
Hmm.
Ranbir Kapoor, someone who almost seems to have a personal vendetta against him.
Hmm.
But then when they say that they're going to frame Ranbir Kapoor's character, that he is
Yeah.
not actually kidnapped Jilmil, but because they can't find the real culprit, he's going
Hmm.
to be the fall guy.
Hmm.
That's when he has a change of heart, a change of conscience, where he's like,
Hmm.
but that's wrong. We can't do this. And he's the one who lets Shruti and Barfi know that you all stick it
Hmm.
out in Calcutta, that like this is
Hmm.
happening. This is
Hmm.
a character you who's is it a trickster or is it a character like Nawaz's character in Kahani where he's initially portrayed as
Yeah.
the bad guy
Bad guy.
and
Huh.
then he turns. So,
Yeah.
okay, I will modify what I said. It's not a trickster character. Trickster characters where they are playing both sides and you
Sides.
can
Huh.
never be sure on whose side they are.
Yeah.
But this is creating a character who you think is so one note that could never be on your side.
Hmm.
But when they have the opportunity to turn around, they turn
Hmm.
a 180 and actually
Hmm.
come save the day. This
Yeah.
works because of contradiction in your
Hmm.
character. If
Correct.
they're always being good, good doesn't land again.
Hmm.
But if they're
Hmm.
always being bad and then they're being good, you're like, oh wow, okay,
Hmm.
that lands.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we get into scenes and sequences next?
Yeah. Let's do it. I want to talk about one sequence which we often have spoken about out in films like English to English, Pan Singh Tomar, which is the introduction of a character. Like you don't see them immediately, and this is a thing which they did very smartly with Jhilmil's character. So we first see her hands; she's making origami. Then we see the people around her. We hear her backstory that she had an alcoholic mother who tried to kill her. We have this grandfather figure, and we still don't see her face. Then only even when the grandfather goes in the room, you think that we're gonna see her. We still don't see her.
Hmm.
Then and then when he's bringing her out, that's when you see her for the first time. And again, like I questioned that why did they make this choice for her character and not like the other two? Uh, it has to do something with like how you're gonna see this actor in a completely different role we've never seen them
Hmm.
before, right? It's less about writing, but a little bit about surprising the audience. You know that other two characters are somewhat similar looking, like than their real personalities. So you're like, huh, how do we create surprise for this one? And
Hmm.
and I thought like this was very nicely done with Jilmil's character.
Next, I want to talk about the technique which I have decided to call conflict piling. Finally,
Okay,
this is my name for it. I'm sure there's a billion names for it out there, but yeah.
okay.
And we've spoken about this in several films where you push a character against a wall and you make a
Hmm,
scene more and more and more difficult
hmm,
for them.
hmm,
So, this is where Ranbir Kapoor is met with Jhilmil, has kidnapped Jhilmil, and he is
hmm,
really realizing what it's like to be with someone like her
hmm,
who has these special needs.
hmm,
So she starts with, okay, I need to go pee. And
hmm,
he's like, okay, go. And she's like, no, you have to take me. That's
hmm.
awkward enough. Like, it's like, oh my God, okay, I have to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
Then, not that that's not bad now, but he tries to take her hand, doesn't. Just a, he holds the she holds something off him, like
Huh.
clothes or something like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she follows him. Then it's like, okay, now go. But she's wearing bloomers and she can't untie them herself. So now
Hmm.
he has to come and untie them for her. He
Hmm.
even worse. Then you think that's bad enough. But then he's like, okay, go. And he's shutting the door. And she's like, no, 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 don't
No.
shut the door.
Uh-huh.
So how can you pile one conflict on
Hmm.
top of the other? And the
Hmm.
way your character escapes that conflict or gets out of that bad situation reveals to us who they are.
Hmm.
And in this case, it reveals to us that while Ranbir is awkward and uncomfortable in the situation,
Hmm.
he is not a bad guy.
Hmm.
Even though he is awkward, he will not abandon you. He's here for
Hmm.
you. He's solid.
Hmm. This one is about the technique of escalation and uh having the escalation having an element of surprise. So this is the big heartbreak scene which Barfi has, which is like going into Barfi decides he will go and talk to Shruti's parents for her hand in marriage, and only to realize that's not going to be the case for him. So uh, again, it could have gone multiple ways, like like the father being like, "How dare you? Like, dare you think this could have happened? Like, how dare you think my daughter will marry somebody like you? Whatever." It could have had multiple ways of somebody else putting Barfi down.
Hmm.
Now, but they've choreographed and crafted the scene very nicely to like not make it to that over dramatic and melodramatic space. So you see him getting there in the hope. So you have hope first, right? Then why he presents a letter to again the parents. There's hope again, but immediately you see that Shruti is there with her fiance. So that immediately in that moment for him the story ends, right? Like,
Hmm.
but how do you keep pushing that? After that, he's about to go out, and he himself backs out of the scene without making a scene, right?
Hmm.
But now he goes and he opens the umbrella because it's raining outside. The umbrella fails him. Then he gets on his cycle. The chain of the cycle breaks. And this frustration of like one rejection after the other, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, it keeps escalating his emotion that he
Hmm.
finally is able to have this one monologue of sorts where he fully breaks out what his heart was saying that
Hmm.
why did you spend time with me? You were any whatever he said, that big moment. And I thought it only came because he got that final push on so many levels. It kept happening one after the other after the other. So I thought this was a
Yeah.
great escalation sequence which kept surprising you.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Again, it's, I think, same like conflict piling,
Piling,
essentially.
conflict piling, yeah.
And yeah, one more thing within the scene which I wanted to point is that we really see Barfi as very physically adept, right? Throughout
Hmm.
the starting of the film.
Hmm.
Like he has no problem like grabbing a cycle, climbing up a
Hmm.
ladder here, there. He's when he slides off a horse and hangs off the back of it like that, like
Hmm.
mad strength. But when he's leaving the house, he's
Hmm.
so flustered after this rejection that he bumps into the door.
Huh. Oh
And that
yeah.
is very unusual for a character like him. And it
Hmm.
shows us that he's in a different state of mind.
Hmm.
So, especially in this film where you don't have dialogue, obviously
Hmm.
it's a masterclass in acting, it's a masterclass in direction. But how can you write this into your script? It's
Hmm.
by creating a contradiction and by creating a contradiction of his headspace.
Hmm. Hmm.
So over here, he's not at his best. He's not
Hmm.
charming. He's feeling down. And in feeling down, he's feeling so less than that even his physical capabilities are failing him. He's floundering.
Hmm. Hmm.
How
Hmm.
can you demonstrate an opposite action to represent an opposite emotion? Then, speaking of contrasts, I also want to talk about the opening where Ranbir Kapoor's character is seen for the first time
Hmm.
and we see him scramble out of bed at the age of 70. This is a flash
Hmm.
forward in the film, grabbing his camera, and he takes a photo of himself. And the
Hmm.
photo, you get a glimpse of it. It's extremely odd, it's funny, it makes you
Hmm.
chuckle. And
Hmm.
immediately, he falls out of the chair
Hmm.
and he collapses to the ground. Now, if he had just gotten out of bed and tried to stand up and fall into the ground, we'd be like, okay, theek hai. But
Hmm.
because you got to laugh before that by looking at that funny photo,
Yeah.
and then you brought him to the ground,
Hmm.
it's creating contradiction for that to land. So
Hmm.
it's only the laugh makes the sadness even sadder.
Sadder. Hmm.
So, mm, okay, the next technique I want to point out is moral choice.
Hmm.
What is moral choice? It is, in Dumbledore's words, choosing between what is easy and what is right. Right?
Nice. Yeah.
Yes. And we see this play out at the final resurrection moment of the film
Hmm.
from Shruti's character.
Hmm.
Shruti has been pining away for Barfi her whole life. She realizes she's made a mistake. She should have stayed with him. And she even leaves her husband to ultimately be with Barfi, even
Hmm.
platonically so. And she knows he's looking for Jhilmil.
Hmm.
And when they're finally leaving the home for special kids, when they're leaving Muskan, and and Jhilmil calls out, Barfi. Obviously,
Hmm.
Barfi can't hear her. And
Hmm.
the pause on Shruti's face as she continues walking. And you
Hmm.
feel like, oh, she's not going to like tell him anything. Because
Hmm.
now she can finally have him. Now he thinks Jilmil is out of the picture. He needs support. He can be hers.
Hmm.
And that's all she's ever wanted throughout the film. And
Hmm.
it would be easy. And she has a moment. But then she does what is right.
Hmm.
It tells,
Hmm.
and she turns around and looks at Barfi and he
Hmm.
understands.
Hmm.
this is this moral choice is an important technique to show us who a character really is.
Hmm.
And over here, we've seen that Shruti is a character we can root for because
Hmm.
she does what is right, not what is easy, even at the
Hmm.
cost of her own love life.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like, then you feel bad for her heartbreak. If she
Yeah.
hadn't pointed it out, and later Ranbir Kapoor would have rejected her, should the story
Hmm.
have gone that direction, it would have been like, girl, you deserve it, you a bitch.
Hmm.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
here, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now you actually feel bad for her. You're like, oh, she's
Yeah.
a good person.
Yeah.
Right? And taking off from that scene, there's delayed gratification again, which is
Hmm.
very common in rom-coms. So
Hmm.
she turns to Ranbir and says, okay, Jilmil is calling you. He could have immediately turned around and started running. Instead, he pauses. He takes a
Hmm.
beat. He's like, oh, okay. Oh my God, this is really happening. Wow. Then he
Yeah.
pulls out a comb and he combs his hair. Like,
Hell.
okay,
Yeah.
wow. Then even before leaving, he acknowledges Shruti's emotions and he knows
Hmm.
she's heartbroken. He's not stupid. So he tells her, he's like, smile. And then he goes running up there.
Yeah.
You know what your audience is waiting for, but you
Yeah.
want to keep them waiting for it.
Hmm.
You want
Hmm.
to give them that little delayed gratification.
Hmm. Hmm. The play out of how Jilmil gets kidnapped, I thought was very interesting. And I think what they've used is the technique of unpredictability. Like, we know, we understand, okay, Barfi has to kidnap her, right? Like, this is the brief.
Hmm.
Now, how can you make this more engaging? Is that if you keep your audience surprised and you keep it unpredictable, right? So, we understand that Barfi needs money because his father has died. He sees her in the window of when he comes to like ask for money, and we sort of understand that where his mind is going. Okay. Then he practices this on a friend. He like puts him like the chloroform on his nose. We understand that okay, he's fainted. And this used to be back in the day where like chloroform was like the prime thing in movies to like kidnap, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now we cut to Jilmil sleeping now, you know? So you think, okay, now she's gonna get kidnapped, somebody's gonna call. Like, something is gonna happen. What happens next is we go to the police officer. He gets a call that something has happened, okay? Now, so we make two and two together. Okay, maybe they haven't shown us Barfi kidnapping Jilmil. She's kidnapped now. But now we actually cut to Barfi. Like, he is trying to enter the house. Now, you as an audience are thinking, what just happened? Like, is the kidnapping done? Is the kidnapping yet to be done? And also because the movie plays on timeline so much, you think maybe you've gone 10
Back
minutes
to the past.
back into the past, okay?
Yeah.
only to when he goes to Jhilmil's bed and he puts the chloroform, he realizes, oh, she's not there.
Yeah.
And then you realize that she's actually kidnapped, you
Hmm.
know? So this scene could have been straightforward, where like he comes to her and like she's not there, making the scene completely unpredictable.
Well,
So I
yeah.
thought, this play out was very nice.
Yeah. And it only works because this film plays with structure and it
Huh?
plays with flashbacks and timelines. If you did this in
Yeah,
an ordinary film, in a
yeah,
linear film, it would be considered cheating your audiences.
yeah. Correct.
But
Hmm.
because the film panders to this technique, it is built on this technique of cutting between timelines, you can
Yeah,
believe this and buy this. You can
yeah.
give the storyteller the benefit of the doubt or the permission to play with you like this.
I want to talk about two callback moments.
Yeah.
Uh, Callback, as we've established earlier, is a moment, a dialogue, which happens between two characters at different points of time. It either establishes that the nature of the relationship has remained the same, or the relationship has completely changed. So, um, one is that Barfi tests if the other person is going to be with him via this small test of like a lamppost sort of thing, that he'll place himself between like he and his partner in front of a lamppost, and the lamppost is about to fall. So first he tries that with Shruti and she backs off. The second time he does it with Jhilmil, she doesn't back off. So
Hmm.
I thought that was a great like callback. It's not with the same character,
Yeah.
but it's for it's for your main character in relation to the same thing. Like him testing for love with different partners.
Yeah.
Second is the callback of Barfi getting Jhilmil's attention via throwing the shoes. We see that the first time he does it is when she's come back to her house, and in a small match cut, we see that he used to do that when they were younger kids also.
That
So
he
we
would throw a
established,
shoe up to her window and she
huh,
would see the shoe and
true,
realize that it is
huh,
Barfi calling. Yeah.
Barfi, and then even in the end, when he's gone to look for her, he can't go. He goes around every room. He can't find her, and the only thing he can do it again is throw his shoe in the air and hoping that she'll see it and like
Well,
come back for him.
cool. Let's go into dialogues next. One thing I want to talk about in dialogue, while this film is obviously not very dialogue heavy to begin with,
Hmm.
um, playing off reactions more than speaking of dialogue is really important. And
Hmm.
for example, when Ranbir Kapoor's dad dies,
Hmm.
we do not see a dramatic scene of the dad dying. We don't hear calls, screaming, nothing. All we see is Ranbir Kapoor looking somewhere.
Hmm.
We don't hear anyone saying that your dad has died. I'm sorry about your loss. And with that change in expression, you realize that something has happened.
Hmm.
And these are important things to note in your dialogue pass.
Hmm.
When can a dialogue be replaced with a simple action or reaction on the face?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this happens again when Ranbir Kapoor is going to take the ransom money for
Hmm.
kidnapping Jhilmil. And this
Hmm.
happens with the ransom money being placed on a letterbox.
Hmm.
And as this is happening, as the money is placed, the police officer and Jhilmil's dad are waiting to catch the person who will come to
Hmm.
collect this money.
Hmm.
Instead, what happens is a train arrives near the station and a whole crowd comes out
Hmm.
running out of the station. And in that, the police officer tries to guard the money and he thinks he succeeds. So he holds it up to Jhilmil's dad, like, don't worry, I kept the money safe, I kept the money safe. And he's actually holding up the wrong bag.
Hmm.
And he sees the reaction on Jhilmil's dad's face. But you don't
Hmm.
cut to Jhilmil's dad.
Hmm.
You just see the react.
See.
You see the police officer's facial expression
Hmm.
changing,
Hmm.
realizing that he has seen the expression on Jhilmil's dad. So again, no dialogue was needed. Like, "Oh, idiot, where is the bag? Oh, you've done just
Yeah.
one look."
Yeah.
Again, action or reaction replacing dialogue. Very
Hmm.
important.
Hmm. Hmm. I'll tell you the note I had. There's a moment where uh Shruti, Ileana D'Cruz's character, comes to the police station and she's trying to talk to the police officer, the same very same police officer, and she sees that he's harassing him, that he's hitting Barfi. They've kept him in custody, and she says that let him go, like he's innocent. And the police officer says कि ये पैंट देख रहे हो 52 का था 42 का हो गया है. Right?
Yeah.
I thought that was such a funny line, and
Yeah.
it only works because you know what he's saying exactly. Like like I have always ran behind him. You've seen him do this multiple times in the film.
Yeah.
This could have been a very simple line, oh, like I've chased him before or whatever. Like it's not the first time he's come to the police station. But they've used this sort of metaphor of sorts that, you're seeing this pant, it's become loose because I've lost weight running behind him. That's the
Yeah.
full meaning. But
Yeah.
I thought they did it so smartly by just using the metaphor.
Yeah.
Clever dialogue.
Definitely. Yes. Very
Yeah.
well done. Let's go into genre tropes next.
In a romance film, there's one genre trope which is of the grand gesture. So either it happens when the first time the main character is going to the potential love interest, and either at that time they'll do a grand gesture like, "Oh, this is my big proposal to you," whatever, or it'll happen in the end of the film, right? Like I'll chase through the airport, I'll do something, I'll get you a carriage wheel with a horse. It could be that.
To
In
win
this,
them back.
to
Yeah.
win them back, yeah. In this one, it happens when Barfi is asking Shruti to become his lover. So first he does the whole thing that, either like he puts his heart in front of her. That doesn't work. So that's not the grand gesture. But he's like, how can I still allow her to be in my life? So he goes to the clock tower behind her, actually says, I'm taking time back by 15 minutes. Now, this is the grand gesture. And
Hmm.
this is what makes her melt. And she's like,
Yeah.
whatever. You see it on her face that, okay, she's going to be part of his life now. So I thought that was a
Definitely.
good trope they've used here.
Yeah, for sure. And grand gestures work because we want to see how far people will go to show us that they love us, right? What is
Yeah,
the effort that someone's going to put in? And we want
correct.
that in real life, and that's why it's a trope in romantic
So
comedies too.
yeah, correct. I think we should talk about that. Is that the moment Jilmil starts feeling jealous of Shruti's character and her relationship with Barfi, is that moment she meets Shruti for the first time and Shruti turns. She sees her in a sari,
Hmm.
and she immediately, I felt so moved by that one small moment, which was
Hmm.
that like, oh, she's feeling so bad that A, she doesn't wear these kind of clothes. B, she doesn't look as attractive as this woman. And like, see like how natural she is with Barfi, you know?
For sure. And I think it is just also a genre trope, right? It's jealousy.
Yeah.
When you're doing a
Jealousy.
love triangle,
Yeah.
jealousy is because that's what creates conflict. And you
Yeah.
want conflict in your rom com to take your story forward because it
Correct.
creates a distance between your characters, more of a journey to cover.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
also why it works in these films.
Yeah. Love triangle, correct. The genre trope. Hmm.
Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
Cool. Yeah. That's all I have on Barfi. What about you?
Yeah. Same.
Thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of the Breakdown Besties podcast. You know the drill. Like, share, subscribe. Leave us any questions, comments, notes, and suggestions. And we will see you next Thursday on another episode of the Breakdown Besties podcast. Bye.
Bye, guys. Hi again, bestie. For our next episode, we are breaking down the film Razi. Yeah, so watch it before our episode if you can, so that when we are breaking it down, you are fully up to speed with us. See you next Thursday.